Hello, welcome to the Crafting Chez. I'm Ruth from Beltane Gifts, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these, which is a bunny bum brooch. In this case, an Easter bunny bum brooch. I'm going to show you how to make a small version, which is going to be this brooch size, but you can make them any size you want to. The idea is I want to show you how to make one of these so that it can go onto our Easter wreath that we're going to be making. So yes, it's lovely and simple to do, and it uses two main techniques. One is creating a 3D shape, so for the basic bum and tail area. The other is creating flat felt for the feet, and the flat felt one's really handy if you wanted to make ears and things as well for other creatures. What we're going to be using today are felting cushion, which for me is just a bag full of rice. I've got my felting needle. Today I'm going to be using my fine one. Now the main reason I'm using just the fine needle today is because I'm going to be working on some of this, which is just acrylic felt, and I've found that if you use a thicker needle sometimes it can get stuck and you're in danger of breaking your needle that way. So I'm just going to be using my fine needle. At the moment I'm using a 38 gauge star needle. You don't need to use one of these, you can just use a generic fine needle. This is just what I still have on the handle. I'm surprised I haven't broken it yet. Anyway, so we're going to be using one of those. We've got some finger protectors because there is a likelihood of stabbing yourself, and we're going to be using some carded Corriedale fibre, wool fibre for this. So I'm using their white, which is kind of like an off-white, kind of creamy, but you can use, if you wanted to, roving for this. Just mess up the fibre before you start using. And I'm also using some pink. This is quite a bright candy flossy kind of pink. You can use any colours you want to though, just whatever you want for your bunny to be. Okay, so we're going to start this by popping our acrylic felt onto the cushion. If you want to, you can pre-cut this out into an oval shape that would be the finished size of your bunny bum, or you can leave it as is and just kind of work it out as you go, which is what I'm going to do, and then you just trim the excess felt off once you're finished. What we'll need now is some of our white or cream fibre. I'm just going to pull off a small section so it's about the length of my hand, and you can always add more later if you need to. So start with a smaller amount than you think you'll need, and then you can always add later if you have to. Finger protectors on, and we're going to start stabbing round in a semicircle. So lay your end onto your felt and start stabbing round in your semicircle, and this is going to be the size, your finished size basically. Okay, so once you've done your first pass and it's starting to attach, what we're going to do is we're going to push the fibre, so we're kind of concertinaing it together, and then we're going to stab over it again. And I'm using kind of a 45-degree angle for my stabbing, and I'm stabbing towards where the centre is going to be. So I'm just going to concertina some more in, and this whole process is quite quick. Okay, so once it starts to thicken up as it is here, I'm going to start stabbing a little bit higher up and over the top just to kind of thicken up this area. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to peel off now. If you're using one of these felting cushions like I am, you need to peel off quite regularly, otherwise you'll end up just getting caught. You can see there where the fibres have come through. If you don't peel off regularly, you might need to cut them off later. We don't want to do that. So I'm just going to turn it round. And this is just because I find it easier to stab because I'm right-handed towards my left. So I rotate it just so that I get more control and I can see what I'm doing. So just going to do exactly the same. Just going to be stabbing these loose areas just into a semicircle that meets up with our previous one. Any loose sections, just start stabbing those into place, and you'll start to see we're getting our shape there now. And we want kind of an oval shape, so any bits that are sticking out more than others, you can just stab those in. And then we've got really loose section on top where we haven't felted as much, so I'm just going to stab straight down into that. And I'm using quite spread out stabs. I'm not stabbing too close together because we still want a bit of fluffiness about this. We don't want it too dense, we want a bit of texture. Okay, so that's our base. Let me just pull it off again. There we go. So I'm turning it around so it's facing me. Now with our little bunny here, we've got a little tail, so I'm going to do that next. I'm going to take just a small section out of our fibre there, mess it up a bit, and I'm going to roll it just into a bit of a ball. This makes sure that you don't have flyaway bits, and it also starts that felting process, gets everything a bit closer together. I'm going to go for about there for the little tail. Just going to fold it over, hold it in place, and then just stab a couple of times in the middle. And what this does, it just anchors it in place so that I don't have to have my fingers in the way when I'm shaping it. Now that it's anchored, we can start working around the outside edge, and I'm using that 45-degree angle again, and I'm stabbing around this outer edge here inwards towards the centre. So I'm going to be rotating it as I go. I'm doing little stabs, just slowly catching those edges and stabbing them into the centre. So if you can see from this angle, just catching round the base here. And what this does is it catches those extra fibres and it pushes them in, which interlocks with everything else, and it just tightens everything. Okay, once it's firmly attached, what we can do is just go on with the shaping. So I'm just going to do, again, a couple of random stabs. I'm going quite deep, but I'm doing it quite slowly. What I want to do is catch as many fibres as possible just to make sure it stays in place. And you will find, because this hasn't been overly stabbed, that you see there it's starting to indent. I'm not sure if I can, there we go. You can see there's a line where it's starting to indent. So what we can do is just stab around the base of the tail again, just stabbing all the fibre under. And what that should do is just tighten up all this loose fibre here and really define that tail. And I'm going to just tighten up this bit at the back as well, just by stabbing at a really low angle and pushing everything in. And what this will do is push the fibres in, which will push everything else up. Now, because this is supposed to be the bum, we're just going to felt just a little bit of an indent just down from the tail. There we go, and I'm just stabbing in a straight line, lots of little jabs at a 45-degree angle. And if you can see there, I'm just stabbing in the same line, just taking the needle out, stabbing again. And that gives us a really well-defined bum area. I'm sorry, I'm so immature. There we go. So that's our bum. If you want to, you can make the tail even smaller, but I think that'll do for now. So we can pop this out of the way for the moment because we need to make some feet. And to do those, we're going to need some more of the white fibre. And because we're making two of them, what we need to do is try and get equal amounts of fibre to start off with. This will just save us a lot of trouble later on. So I think they're about the same. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold them up a bit. So I'm just folding, as you can see, popping one end in, then the other end in. And finger protectors on again. I'm just going to stab straight down. And this is just to start felting it and flattening it. Go. So just stab all over the area. If you were using roving, what I'd recommend is that you took apart your roving first, messed it up as much as you could, and then rolled it into a bit of a ball before you start flattening it. That's just because all the fibres with roving are going in one direction. With this carded fibre, it's a bit messier, so it's more likely to hold together. But if you tried this with the roving, you'd end up with everything splitting, which we don't want. Okay, so just turned it over, and I'm going to do the same on the other side, and this is already starting to come together. If you wanted to, you could use a thicker needle for this section just to start off with, but I think for me this needle is going to be great. Okay, so if I just show you that from the side there, see how it's starting to come together? Now this is much bigger than we need it to be, but that's okay because we can thicken this up by folding bits in. Now for the bunny's foot, I want this sort of shape, so almost like an egg shape. It's going to be wider at the base. So what we can do for that is just fold in one side and then fold in the other. Okay, I'm going to leave this like this for a moment and get to the same stage with the other wool. If, like me, you're finding the finger protectors are getting in the way, you can swap to an awl if you need to, which is just a finer point for you to use. If you don't have an awl, which is basically one of these metal spikes, you can use a skewer or cocktail stick, or if you've got a fine knitting needle, anything that's fine with a point on that's not going to leave a mark on your work. very handy to have. Okay, I'm going to peel that one off too. A bit of a stab on the other side. If you do find when you pull off that you've got lots of fibres coming out of your work, just turn it over and stab it again. The more you stab it, the more they're going to felt together, so the less fibre is going to get pulled through. Okay, so I'm just going to hold them up together. There, they're about the same size, which is really good. So now we're going to start shaping, and this is where we're going to really reduce the size down. You will need finger protectors for this. So what we're going to do is just pinch between finger and thumb, and I'm pinching so that my fingers are just along the top edge of the felting, and I'm putting quite a lot of pressure on the two fingers, and that's because what I'm going to do is just catch the edges here, and I'm just felting them down. So if you can see that, just using the needle, catching these edges, and I'm stabbing on the finger side, so my needle is actually sliding between the piece of felted work and my index finger. And I'm going to work my way around the whole shape, just bringing it in. Okay, so that's one rotation. If we just hold it up to the other one, you see how much it's gone in? There we go. So I'm going to do the same to the other one. And now that's done, I'm going to hold the two up together and just see that they're about the same. I think there's a bit sticking out a bit too much on this one. I'm just going to stab it in. Okay, now that's done, I'm going to stab over the top of them again, and what this will do is the side bits that I've folded down here, I'm just going to stab over to felt them into place and just secure them so they don't pop up again. Okay, now these are still much too big for my bunny's bum, for my taste. If you like large feet, then go for that, but I think I'm going to reduce mine down a bit more. So I'm just going to do the same again. I'm just pinching a little bit lower this time, so you see that there's more sticking up. There, and what that'll mean is that there's more fibre that can be pushed down. Now I just held it up to the bum to see if it was the right size, and I found that it was still a bit too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm just pinching a little bit lighter as I hold, and what this means is that I can squish the whole thing down a bit more. So I'm not sure if you can see that. What's happening is when I stab now, the fingers kind of hold everything in place and kind of make sure everything's going in the right direction, but I'm able to felt things further down and into the foot, so it's getting much thicker, much better. So now what I can do is I can use this foot as a template for this foot. So if I just hold the two up together, if you can see how much it's come in and how much thicker it is as well. So what I'm going to do is just hold it there between finger and thumb, and I'm just going to stab the bigger foot, and the aim is to bring everything down so that the two are the same size and shape, hopefully. Okay, so I'm just going to flip one of them over. There we go, because I've got a slight, ever so slight curve on this side, which is like the inside of a foot, so that works. This one is still a little bit smaller, so I'm just going to give it a little bit of a stretch and give that one a little bit of a squish, but I think it should be okay. Now we need to put our little pads onto the bunny's feet, so I've got some pink fibre here. I'm just going to pull off a section, and I'm going to pull off some small bits. I need 6 little balls just to go on the toes, so I need 6 bits of fibre that are about the same size. There we go. And then I'll need 2 bigger sections for the bottom part of the feet, and then we're just going to roll them into balls again, which just makes them easier to position. Now I know these aren't all exactly the same, so I'm just going to match up as best I can ones that seem to be similar sizes, and then we're going to put them onto the feet. So I'm going to show you how to put one of these on, and it's exactly the same technique for all of them. What we're going to do is just lay the fibre where we want it, give it a couple of stabs in the centre just to hold it in place, and then we're just going to work around the outside of the shape we want to make. So in this case it's kind of the same shape as the foot actually, so we can follow that shape. We're just going to go round in a bit of a curve around the back, and then it gets wider towards the front of the foot, and I'm just at a 45-degree angle, little stabs, just outlining the shape I want to create until it's well attached. And then once you've done the outside edge, all you need to do is stab straight down, 90-degree angle, little jabs. We don't need to go all the way through the foot, we just need to go into the felt below so that it stays in place. Go. Any bits that are sticking out, again at 45-degree angle, we're just going to catch them with a needle and stab them in, and then stab straight down again just to hold them in place. Now this has turned into more of a splodge really than the shape I wanted, so what I'm going to do, even lower angle, so if you can see there, I'm basically running my needle along the white felt and catching the pink and just pushing it, and what this does is it just pushes that pink section in, and I can do that all the way around, just grabbing pieces if I need to spread them out a little bit more, and then stabbing other pieces in, and just do this until you're happy with the shape that you've got. There we go. So I'm just going to do this for all the other patches as well, exactly the same technique. With the smaller ones it's just a little bit more fiddly, so just take your time. Okay, so we've finished the feet, they're ready to go onto the bum, which is here. Now remember that there's a little bit of a curve on the inside of the foot, so I'm going to put them that way round. And basically what you do is just stab straight down, 90-degree angle, and we're just going to stab all over and just try and get them to stick. So I'm stabbing around the outside edge of the pink bit first, just because that's the bit we're not going to notice so much that it's been stabbed, and then I'm just going to stab over the white area of the foot. There we go, you can see that's starting to attach. Now if you wanted to, you could try sewing it on, but I'm just going to stick with the felting. So I'm going to do lots of little jabs close together and go quite deep with it so that it's definitely attaching. There we go. And then the same on the other side. Now you might notice, because the bum wasn't felted that well, that it's starting to get squished as we felt on the feet. Don't worry, because what we're going to do is go around the outside edge next. Make sure that's firmly attached. Peel it off. And I'm just going to stab inwards. So if you see from here, I'm stabbing kind of parallel to the backing, and what this does is it just catches the fibre and pushes it in, which lifts everything up a little bit, and it's just giving us more of that 3D feel again. There we go. So if you look, I've just pushed everything back and up, and it's looking a lot more 3D. So I'm going to do the same here and then redo that line again. Okay, so there is our little bunny bum. If you wanted to add a brooch back to it, you can. What we do is we just cut it off the felt. I'm just going to cut in and just cut round, and I'm tilting it up so that my scissors are at an angle. I'm cutting in, if you can see that there, so that none of the purple is showing. There we go, make sure nothing's showing there. Brilliant. And I'm just going to turn it over, and you can see, hopefully you can see, there's a little bit of an indent where I've felted around the outside edges and it's pulled everything in. So what I'm going to do is just stab straight down, just on the areas that are sticking up around the edges. And you don't need to do much here, just enough to flatten everything out. There we go. Now that we've got everything felted into place, what we need to do is create another piece of felt to attach our brooch back to. So if you want to, you can draw around it. Just be careful not to get any pen onto your felting, or you can just hold it onto there. I'm just going to cut a section off roughly. Just cut off that, and now I'm just going to try and trim it to approximately the same size. That'll do. Okay, so we've got our piece of felt. What we need to do now is just to attach the brooch back to it. Now, because I've only got little brooch backs, I'm going to have to put them a little bit higher up, just so that the whole thing doesn't waggle about a bit. So I need to remember which way up this goes. So that's going to be the top. And got a piece of thread. This is embroidery cotton. You don't need to use embroidery cotton. If you've got just normal cotton, that would be great. And what I'm going to do is come in from the back towards the top. And I don't have a knot in my thread, so I'm just going to pull it so that the tail's quite short, put my finger on the tail, and then do a little stitch, and that just holds everything in place. Then I'm going to put my brooch back over the top of the stitch so that it doesn't show, and I'm going to sew through the hole to the back and pull tight, and then I'm just going to do that a couple of times for each of the holes. Okay, now that's done, we're just going to leave the thread attached so that we don't need to add another thread for when we do our sewing round. And we're going to get some glue. I've got some Mod Podge here and my trusty stick because I still don't have a brush, and we're just going to add some glue just to the back of our felted bunny. Nice big splodge on there, and then we're just going to place our back just over the top of where we've glued and just sew all around the edge. Try and get as close to the felt as you can, we don't want it showing from the other side, and we're just going to do some little stitches all the way around. So once you get right to the end, what we're going to do is just sew underneath, come out the other side, pull it tight, and then with our scissors a quick snip. There we go. So you can't see any of your ends. We're going to give it a little squish just to make sure the glue's connecting all the bits together, and then it's just a case of waiting for it to dry. Once it's dried, the glue ends up going a bit like cardboard on the felt, so just gives a nice firm base for your brooch back then. And there we go, there's our little bunny bum brooch for Easter. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, click on that subscribe button and the bell icon, that way you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you've got any comments, any questions, pop them down there in the comments section. I love to hear from you guys. Thanks for watching, stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you for the next video. Bye.